Happy Tuesday. Thank you, Anna. That was funny. We want to welcome you to Well in the Wilderness. We are doing something slightly different tonight, so we're going to tackle one of the big questions, which we'll try and squeeze into 7 or 8 minutes, around what do we do with bits of the Bible that we're uncomfortable with? What do we do with bits of the Bible that we're uncomfortable with? We're reading through Acts of the Apostles, and we're reading an account tonight which might make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. We're very comfortable with the idea of a God of love. We're very comfortable with Jesus being this hippie with long flowing hair, healing people and feeding the thousands. But then whenever we read about Jesus or God acting in a different way, we find that hard, and it's understandable. I'm a Christian who believes that every part of the Bible is true. I don't like to pick and mix what I feel comfortable with and what I'm not comfortable with. Other Christians have different views, and that's completely fine as well. But if you're watching tonight and you feel that parts of the Bible are hard to accept, then know that you're not alone in that, because Anna and I will both find parts of the Bible that we're not that comfortable with. I'm going to let Anna give an example of an account that she's not that comfortable with before we do the reading from chapter 4 of Acts. So over to you, Anna, to tell us about chapter 5, 1:16. But we're going to do that in a moment. First, Anna's going to tell you about Lot's wife.
So there's a passage in the Bible in the Old Testament. Paul was asking me to think about a part in the Bible where I don't doesn't really maybe sit that comfortably with my view of God. And the part that I was thinking of is the part where Lot's wife is turned into a pillar of salt. Seems a bit extreme. So she's turned into a pillar of salt because she looks back. And it kind of conjures up an image of unforgiving God, which I don't really believe that God is. So it's bits like that in the Bible that I kind of have to chew over and think about a bit more.
And I agree. That story is a difficult one. I was asked in a home group this evening for my view on hell, and do bad people go to hell? And that's definitely not something I feel comfortable with. I much prefer the idea of everyone going to heaven, but the Bible doesn't tell us that everyone gets to go to heaven. So there are parts of the Bible that we will need to continue to wrestle with, and I think that it's important that we wrestle with parts of the Bible. We're going to read now about an account, so it's Acts 5, verse 1 to 16. So feel free to listen in as Anna reads. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you. Now a man named Ananias, together with his wife Sapphira, also sold a piece of property. With his wife's full knowledge, he kept back part of the money for himself, but brought the rest and put it at the apostles' feet. Then Peter said, Ananias, how is it that Satan has so filled your heart that you have lied to the Holy Spirit and have kept for yourself some of the money you received for this land? Didn't it belong to you before it was sold? And after it was sold, wasn't the money at your disposal? What made you think of doing such a thing? You have not lied just to human beings, but to God. When Ananias heard this, he fell down and died, and great fear seized all who heard what had happened. Then some young men came forward, wrapped up his body, and carried him out and buried him. About 3 hours later, his wife came in, not knowing what had happened. Peter asked her, Tell me, is this the price you and Ananias got for the land? Yes, she said. This is the price. Peter said to her, How could you conspire to test The Spirit of the Lord, listen, the feet of those who buried your husband are at the door, and they will carry you out also. At that moment she fell down at his feet and died. Then the young men came in, and finding her dead, carried her out and buried her beside her husband. Great fear seized the whole church and all who heard about these events. The apostles performed many signs and wonders among the people, and all the believers used to meet together in Solomon's colonnade. No one else dared join them, even though they were highly regarded by the people. Nevertheless, more and more men and women believed in the Lord and were added to their number. As a result, people brought those who were ill into the streets and laid them on beds and mats, so that at least Peter's shadow might fall on some of them as he passed by. Crowds gathered also from the towns around Jerusalem, bringing those who were ill and those tormented by evil spirits, and all of them were healed.
Thank you, Anna. So the question tonight, what do you do with bits of the Bible that you're not comfortable with? I'll tell you a funny story. I used to be a teacher in Indonesia, and we found that things were going missing from the classroom. We knew that one of the students was stealing money from other people, and we had our suspicions about a girl called Sapphira. Unfortunately, at this time we were looking at this story in the Bible about a character called Sapphira who kind of stole some of the money, kept it back for herself, and ended up dying, as the Bible tells us. And I was quite fearful of the fact that Sapphira in my class might make a unfortunate connection to this story. I hope that she didn't think that God was going to kill her for stealing. And I think it's fairly safe to say that in our context, it's unlikely that God would do something like this. But there aren't any easy answers. One of the answers I would give is that there's often a greater good achieved by an action which might seem unfair. If you look at Jesus dying on the cross at the time, it wouldn't have made any sense to anyone who was there. But obviously, come Easter Sunday and people realised that Jesus was brought back from the dead, it was clear to see that there was a greater good achieved through something that was horrific at the time. And we can see other parts of the Bible where there might be a greater good achieved from an action that might have seemed unfair. So is there a chance the early church was stronger because people were fearful of God and therefore were more honest with each other and more honest before God? That's possible. Is it important for us to fear God? I think so. I love the image of God as Aslan, the lion. You wouldn't think that a lion was a safe, tame animal. And in Narnia, I love the image of Aslan being a powerful lion who you could be fearful of. So God is a God of love, but he's also a God who's much bigger and more powerful than we can ever imagine. So let's remember that we'll never be able to put him into a box and understand everything that he does. But if we can try to understand that there could be a greater good behind some of the bad things that we read about in the Bible, then maybe that helps. So please continue to wrestle with that idea of parts of the Bible you're uncomfortable with. You can message us if there are parts of the Bible you want to get some perspective on. You can ask us questions about the Bible. Feel free to contact us through Instagram, or you could email us at youthteam@kpc.org.uk. And we want to thank you for joining us tonight, and we wish you well. So,
bye. God bless you.
God bless you.